there's a lot of stuff going on, and I'll give my staff a day off in a few weeks to make it up to them, but I don't want to get behind at all. I want to keep you guys, you watchers and listeners, ahead, because there's a bunch of stuff that's going to happen fairly rapidly. Now, I hope you read Confronting the Presidents. If you haven't, it's worth your time, because we've had some really good presidents and some whopper bad ones. Whoa. And it's not always clear at the time that the president is in office whether he's going to be good or bad. And I'm sure we'll have a she coming up too. Anyway, President Trump, the current chief executive, is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. Well, his poll numbers are very low, and that's mainly because of his style over substance, and that American voters didn't like the ICE detention tactics. Those two things. Both of those can be corrected, and will be, I think, because generally Mr. Trump is doing a good job on policy. Now, you may disagree with me, and that's great. Just send me a letter, bill@BillO'Reilly.com, with your name and town attached, and we'll debate it. But I've been around for a while, and I know policy. So let me run it down for you. The border is sealed, and that's huge. The migrant detentions were necessary because so many criminals came in under Joe Biden. I estimate about 2 million criminals, foreign nationals, showed up. All right, it's a lot. It had to be rounded up. But Homeland Security does not have an effective messaging unit. Homeland is all right, but they need to have, look, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing. Here are the criminals. Here are the non-criminals. Here's why we're taking the non-criminals into custody. They need to explain. Let me give you a good example. The press is going to lie to you, and we proved that last week when the left went out and said just 14% of migrants detained by ICE are criminals, have a criminal conviction. That's just bull. Okay, the number is way higher than that because so many offenses are not categorized as violent. And if you don't show up for a hearing, which millions of foreign nationals don't, then you're immediately in the deportation range. You don't have to be a criminal. You didn't show up for your asylum hearing or whatever it may be. Boom, out, you get stamped. Press never reports it, okay, because they want to hurt President Trump. Now, other issues. U.S. economy, pretty vibrant, okay? Inflation contained at this point. The deficit is dropping. The criminal thing, American criminals, down across the board. Gaza situation handled very well by President Trump. I don't know any other president could have gotten done. Venezuela was a success, whether you like the tactics or not. Okay? And when you add it all up, all the things that President Trump has tried to do in his first year, most of them have worked out. But the demeanor is a problem. That Obama thing with the monkeys, Americans don't like this. Okay, and you gotta stop it. If I'm an advisor to President Trump, I form a unit, a quick strike unit, to go out when these things happen and to explain it rationally. I don't think the president should be doing it himself on the Air Force One or wherever it may be. You can answer some questions, but have the definition put out first. Okay, so we all know that Trump is demonized by the media and his opposition. We know that that is going to be a factor in the midterm elections. Because some people who will vote, they don't know what's going on. They don't care what's going on. Most of them won't even show up. Remember, the voting patterns in off-season elections much, much lower. Finally, the real brawl in the country isn't between Republican and Democrats, between traditional people like me and Donald Trump, he's traditional, and progressives who want to blow the system up and impose socialism, whatever it may be, open borders. That's the brawl. And I don't expect that to subside. And that is the memo. All right, to Minnesota. So the federal government's pulling many of the ICE agents out of there. They say that mission Operation Metro Surge is completed. That began on December 1st, you may remember. The arrests are 70%, the Department of Homeland Security says, were involved in some kind of illegal activity of the people that they detained, 70%. It's the highest number I've heard. I don't, you know, how do I know? How do you know? Nobody knows. That's what DHS is saying. Now, the Inspector General of DHS is the only person who can confirm that. 200 people in Minnesota have been arrested for impeding the work of federal agents. Very few of them will be punished. It's not going to be like January 6th, believe me. But what about the ones who were not criminally involved? This is, and it goes back to the talking points memo. You've got to tell the American people what happens to them once they're rounded up. You got to go step by step. This is the way it is. I fervently believe that if the Trump administration would begin doing that, most Americans would say, okay. Don't you believe that? But for some reason, that information is not forthcoming. I don't understand it. Okay. Now, I used to teach high school in Miami, Florida. You guys know that. Many of the students that I taught history and English to, their parents were refugees from Cuba. I would say 50%, that high. And Dade County, where I was, Florida, has been a refuge place for people persecuted, not only in Cuba, but in Nicaragua, in El Salvador, in all of these countries that totally out of control, okay? And they would come to South Florida because they had relatives there. And depending on who the president was, it was fairly easy. Reagan let everybody come in. Remember that? Everybody come in. And they made a deal, and the deal wasn't upheld. They were going to build a fence. They were going to secure the border, and that never happened. So the Overt family came, and they arrived in 1981. And they're here illegally, and they went through the process to become American citizens. Christian Overt is now the founder of Edge Communications, a very successful man in Dade County. And he has a big problem with Homeland Security and what they are doing. He joins us now from Miami. Is that intro accurate?
For the most part, with much respect, it's not that I disagree and have a big problem with what Homeland Security is doing, is that what the president campaigned on in 2024 is not what's living out on American streets today. And you talked about my family coming here, following a process. We know TPS was offered to Venezuelans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and following the law and a process, and the rug got pulled under them by this president overnight. And the courts have now said that it is beyond the president's authority to have done that. So I agreed with what you said at the intro, which we have processes and we have policies in this country, and this president should follow them. I agree that.
But what policy? Let's get specific, though. Let's get specific, Christian.
Absolutely.
What policy is Donald Trump not following? Give me the big one.
Well, TPS, for example. TPS, courts ruled as early as last week that him canceling with one swipe of a pen, TPS for Haitians, did not follow the process in our country. Courts have ruled it. Independent.
Okay, but remember now.
Have opined on this.
Remember, most of the initial rulings by the federal judges have been overturned by the appeals court. Now, I'm not going to say that the Haitian
This
thing is
ruling
going
just happened.
I don't know.
This ruling just happened. Last week, has even gone to an appellate process. Venezuelan TPS has been upheld, and it's now pending before the U.S. Supreme Court. So, yes, it's ultimately to the highest court of our land
Right.
to rule if the president
To rule
has
what the boundaries are
Correct.
for the executive branch. And the reason, and people should know this, that President Trump put a stop on the Haitian migration is because Haiti has fallen apart. It's collapsed. Whole country has collapsed. Okay? So that the sheer volume of Haitians who want to get the hell out of there, all right, is too much for any American state to absorb. Can't absorb it. So there was a reason. It wasn't like, oh, I hate Haitians. Okay?
Yeah,
and that reason will be taken into account by the appeals court.
But let's talk about policy and process. What you just described does not bear out to be true here because TPS is impacting people here. I agree, Haiti is at the point of collapse. It's unsafe, it's dangerous. Families are being targeted and persecuted. But the rules that have been changed are impacting families here that, again, overnight, someone who had legal status because of this president no longer has legal status. That's what's happened with Venezuelans. It's what's happening with Nicaraguans, with Cubans.
Christian, I don't know of any mass deportations on Haitians, and you live in a city where there's a little Haiti, a huge neighborhood, and in New York there's a huge neighborhood of Haitians. There hasn't been any ICE going in there and rounding up anybody, as far as I know.
Because the courts intervened. The courts intervened, Mr. Riley. That's ultimately what happened.
But that's our process.
Correct. And the same thing is true with Venezuelans. The courts have issued stays. The administration under this president is challenging those court orders, which that is part of our process. I'm not negating that. But at the end, they are targeting innocent families who are Venezuelans. And this administration has acknowledged the dangerous regime that is the Maduro regime, right? And now they're saying we're going to round up Venezuelans who have been vetted through TPS, who are not criminals, and locking them up, children, families, women. We don't know where some are today. That is a problem. Because
I said that quite clearly. But again, there are no mass roundups. There are no mass roundups of Venezuelans. The president issues the order because the system is becoming overwhelmed, and that's what I want to get to you on. You know as well as I do, because your heritage is Nicaraguan, and I covered the war in El Salvador, so I know the area very well. The United States cannot absorb all these people. Okay? That is a destabilizer for our entire country. And in Europe, they're going, wait, Christian, they're going nuts in Europe, and I'll prove it in a minute with Switzerland's referendum. You cannot absorb them all. You can't. So it's got to be a limit, a cap, and that's what Congress should be doing, but they won't do it because the Democratic Party doesn't want any limits. Would you agree with that?
No, that's not accurate. The Democratic Party does not believe that there should not be limits.
Prove
the
it.
Democratic Party has
Prove
always said,
Give me one piece of legislation advanced by the Democratic Party that doesn't lead to leniency for migrants. Give me one.
There are a number of bipartisan
Give me one.
policies. There are a number of, with much respect, there's a number of policies dating back to former President Reagan.
Okay, you're not giving me one. Because it doesn't exist, Christian.
Yes, let's go back to President Reagan.
I'm not going back anywhere. We're living in 2026. You got Democratic, Christian.
There are Republican
I asked you a
leaders
simple
in the
question.
Congress.
You're a smart man. I asked you a simple question. Give me one thing the Democratic Party has advanced in Congress to limit unlimited migration. You can't do it because it doesn't exist.
There is bipartisan legislation today in the halls of Congress being discussed by Democratic leaders working with their Republican counterparts that advance legislation that allow for those who are in our country to have a pathway to a residency, to make sure that our borders are secured, that the rule of law is followed and that there are processes in place to reinstate TPS. Those are legislation filed today in bipartisan form.
There is
that are
no
not
written legislation. Anybody
There
can
is.
discuss anything. Final thing. You live in a Nicaraguan community, right?
I
Primarily?
do, sir. Yes.
Right.
And I'm
Okay.
married to a Venezuelan American, yes.
All right. What's the mood?
What's the mood? It's very simple. A sense of betrayal, a sense of fear, and a sense of hope that Congress acts to restore a sense of dignity and a full rule of the law of order, because we are a country of laws. We believe that. Hispanic families have always understood that there's a time and place and there's a process. We don't believe that you should just have open borders. We believe that there should be continued compassion in this country. Those who are fleeing political persecution, those who have entire lives destroyed by oppressive governments, have found an opportunity in this country. I am living proof of that. We need to get back to a country that accepts and embraces
Well, your
that
parents,
by following policies
your
and
mom,
processes.
and I don't know about your father, but your mom did it the right way. Here's one more specific, and I'm not trying to make you look bad, but I'm
No,
curious.
it's okay. I appreciate the tough question, sir.
Somebody comes here from Nicaragua and says, I want asylum because the Sandinista communist government is oppressive, they're going to hurt me. And they get in because Biden let everybody in, and then they're given a hearing date. They don't show up for the hearing date. And we have hundreds of thousands of migrants in that category. Do you deport that person?
If that person broke the law
No,
and is not
I gave you
following
the scenario.
Sir,
Don't show up for the asylum hearing. Do you deport? Yes or no?
You have to understand that under this administration, they have weaponized those hearings because people live in fear. So if
You're
you
dodging.
get back to, no, I'm not dodging. So
You're
this is a
dodging,
reality.
man. You're
No,
dodging.
this is a life every day. I invite you to come to our community and talk to folks here who want to show up to those hearings, understanding that there's a pathway to resolve.
Well, then they got to show up.
Because they had to PS. I agree. I encourage folks to show up. I
Well,
know
if
folks
they don't show up,
show up.
they got to go.
Here, sir, and that's where we have to get back to a place that laws are followed. But when you have a Department of Homeland Security who's acting, and you've seen the videos and you touched on it at the beginning of your show, we need to get back to a place where the department is executing the laws correctly and with compassion, understanding that these are people's lives. If you committed a violent
But
crime,
there got to be, Christian, there got to be rules and there got to be standards, and that's where I think you and I we diverge. All right, I got to run. I want you to
appreciate that time. I do.
Sure, give my best to everybody down in Dade, and we really appreciate being a stand-up guy and coming on in. Final thought. Okay, so we got a concierge membership, as you know, and I just said direct access to me. Let me give you 2 examples, and they're easy ones. Some of them are very complicated. So what you do is you become a concierge member on BillO'Reilly.com, and then you get an email where if you have any problems or you want more information or whatever it is you want, we get back to you within 24 hours. You get a transcript of everything I say if you want it free. Okay. So we got a woman from Florida. We don't give names. If you're a concierge member, you are anonymous to everybody. Never, ever will we give your name out. So a woman writes that she is having trouble, okay, with a refund from a company. They owe her $2,000. Okay. She canceled her account. It's a home warranty company, and the company said, okay, we'll refund you $2,000. She couldn't get it. Not unusual. Couldn't get the money. Wouldn't send it to her. So we call the company very politely and say, we looked at the warranty, owe the woman $2,000. Can pay it or not. We don't waste time. So the company did refund the check to the woman. She got $2,000. Another guy from California, he was involved with a gold company called Gold Co. Okay? And he wanted to liquidate his holdings. Legitimately. Wanted to sell them. Couldn't get anywhere with Goldco. We called and said, hey, your contract is somebody wants to sell, got to sell, and the money they get. Goldco did the right thing. I was impressed by Goldco doing the right thing. So the guy got his money the next day. You know any other service that does this? And I'll admit, the companies are afraid because if I go on the air and say, hey, this company's screwing Myrtle from Mississippi, it's not good. And we use that leverage, but not in a mean, unfair way. We want justice for you. That's what Concierge Member is all about. BillO'Reilly.com. Hope you consider it. Thank you for watching us tonight, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Apparently, they have been dealt a very big blow by something that broke today about the Epstein files. Interesting story, and we'll have it for you coming soon. I did speak with President Trump about Iran. I'm going to tell you all about that. And we're going to have more on Neville Roy Singham. Remember, we broke that story a couple of weeks ago. Others had been investigating, but we really put a vivid sign on it. He's an American traitor living in Shanghai, China, funneling hundreds of millions of dollars into radical groups in the USA. And we believe those groups are paying agitators to try to essentially destroy the government of the USA. So we're going to have more on that right now. Talking points memo. So this morning, the House Ways and Means Committee held hearings on Singham and a few radical groups that are under investigation. One caveat here. Congress is now being pretty aggressive investigating this. Where's the FBI? Where are the departments of the U.S. government? Silence. Don't like that. I understand you can't give specifics. You can't convict people or even give names, but you can give an overview as we are giving, okay? So the investigation this morning was led by Congressman Jason Smith, Missouri, Ways and Means, as I mentioned, and he focused in on two groups, Breakthrough Media and Tricontinental, the Institute for Social Research. Okay? So the House is subpoenaing records from those two groups. Now, they are shadowy. These are really, we're getting down to it now. Remember, all coming out of China, which is not America's friend. Okay. Breakthrough Media. Its headquarters, 320 West 37th Street in New York City. Same address as the People's Forum. Same address. What's the People's Forum, as we reported? Communist organization. Okay? And they are getting money from Mr. Singham. Whoa, what a coincidence. Okay? So they say, Breakthrough News says, that they regularly produce content that's aligned with the Chinese government party, which is allowed under the Constitution. You can be a communist, you can promote communism. It's allowed, okay? The head of this group is a woman named Carla Reyes, all right, who's apparently a communist, she'd have to be. And the whole crew is, the Jerusalem Post has done a big expose on these people and how radical left they are. Remember, the central part of this is funneling money to these groups, Shanghai to New York, to Minnesota, to Portland, Oregon, to LA, wherever, to pay agitators to go out and destroy things, attack federal agents, on and on. That is the allegation. That is why we are doing the story. Okay. The other one is Tricontinental Institute for Social Research. This is in Northampton, Massachusetts. Okay? It has offices in 4 countries: Argentina, South Africa, India, and Brazil. It is a, quote, Marxist think tank. All right. So it remains to be seen whether the federal government can prove that these organizations are funding agitators who are committing violence. That would be conspiracy. Now, we already know that Neville Roy Singham's a traitor. And if you don't like it, Mr. Singham, come on and sue me. Okay, come on back here. And I'll be happy to go up against you. You're a traitor. And you're getting people killed, to boot. Now, this guy Singham, New York Times exposed him a few years ago. Congress has been on him since October. But again, FBI, we have no blanket idea. The other thing that's a little bit disturbing is that I asked Secretary Bessent where the defunding of these organizations are, because the organizations that Singham gives money to are all nonprofit 501cs. And Bessent gave me the middle finger. That wasn't nice. He didn't really, but I'm doing, when you ignore a legitimate question from me, who has millions of viewers all over the world, that's not smart, Mr. Secretary. So now I'm watching you. It's not a threat. It's like, this is your job. You can go on CNBC and Fox News, Business News all day long and tell everybody how great the economy is, but you need to address serious things like this. All right? And I talked about it with President Trump. He's on it. And I told you in our last report that I did give him the information that we had because he requested it. And that's my job as an American. But Bessent, we are open to hearing what you have to say, but you should say something. I think that's fair. All right, let's sum this up. So China's not a friend of the USA. We got an American trader over there in Shanghai. He's pumping money into all of these nonprofits. The nonprofits are then sending the money to agitators, we believe, okay, who are then getting people killed and disrupting all kinds of investigations on the federal level and causing rebellion. That's where we are, all right? And I'm not going to leave this story. I'm not going to let it go. And you're not going to hear it on ABC or NBC or CBS. You're not going to hear it. They won't report it. I don't know why. It's insane. I mean, this Savannah Guthrie mother tragedy, horrible. But this story is covered 10,000 times more than this story about fostering rebellion in your own country. And it just, I know it's easy to cover the Guthrie story. I'm going to write about it tomorrow in the message of the day. But we know what's important here, and that's the memo. Okay, Epstein files. Now, I don't cover this because I knew it was bogus from the beginning. Because I know Trump, 35 years. I know what he does. I know who he hangs with. I knew this was BS. But the Trump haters desperately want to hang Epstein around him. Now, the latest information, okay, from all of these files is, now stay with me, I'm going to walk right through this. 2006, Jeffrey Epstein was under investigation for crimes involving minor girls. That got into the press. Trump called authorities in Palm Beach County, and specifically the sheriff, Michael Ryder. Trump told the sheriff, according to the documents in the Epstein files, okay, you better get Epstein. He's an awful guy. Okay. That same year, 2006, Epstein was indicted. It took 2 years. And he was convicted on state charges. In Florida, he served 18 months in prison. Then he got out of prison and went back to doing the same stuff. Come on. The feds did not indict him. Now, there's a lot of controversy about that. Feds should have indicted him or they made a deal. I'm not an expert on that. So Trump was basically anti-Epstein before 2006, but now he's on the record. So you would think that everybody would report this the way I just did, and then the hysteria would stop. Nope. CNN comes out and says, well, that indicates that Trump knew what Epstein was doing and didn't report it quickly enough, or some stupid spin garbage like that. Now, we're going to define that tomorrow a little more clearly to you about how dishonest this whole thing is. But that was an important thing about all of these people who spend hours and hours and hours trying to convict Trump of something. And now we have documentation that he was anti-Epstein and actually informed the authorities in 2006. Cuba can't refuel planes. So a bunch of planes that land, including U.S. planes, American, United, Southwest, all fly into Havana from various places. And then, Air Canada flies, Aeromexico flies there, Lufthansa, Swiss Air, all of that. So your plane lands, you got to refuel. Cuba didn't have enough oil to refuel the planes because Venezuela's collapsed. That's where Cuba got its oil. Cuba's going to go. You watch my prediction. Epstein, I'm sorry to report, but there is some breaking news here, so I have to. So today, Epstein's henchwoman, Elaine Maxwell, serving 20 years in federal prison, went to the House to testify. Oversight Committee took the fifth. Said, look, if you give me clemency, I'll tell you everything. Hey, lady, if it were up to me, you'd never get out of prison. Ever. Okay? I don't care whether you take the fifth or not. And the Clintons, end of this month, Bill Clinton is supposed to testify in front of the Oversight Committee on February 27th. Hillary Clinton, February 26th. So joining us now is a member of that committee so we can find out what the inside stuff is. Pete Sessions is a Republican congressman from Texas. So you knew that Maxwell was going to take the fifth, right? Before she showed up today?
We did. We'd figured that out. We've been through this charade now for several months.
So why bother calling her in?
Well, because we had to give the chance. We've called a lot of former officials Republicans who provided the best of information that they could and had. We have been after both President Clinton and Mrs. Clinton for quite some time. They're the ones that really made this the issue. We typically do these without the entire committee there. They've chosen to do this. We've got lots of questions they would tend to be aware of, or we'll find out what they are going to say, remembering that they're going to take an oath, and that oath means
but they may
truth.
They may not recall. That's Hillary's big line. I don't really recall. But interestingly enough, Maxwell's lawyer today said publicly Presidents Trump and Clinton had nothing to do with anything untoward, right?
I think that's correct, but there are things that the committee may have on both President and Mrs. Clinton where when they don't remember, they may be reminded.
That's always a good thing, Congressman.
Isn't that, there's an old saying, facts are a stubborn thing, but there are things which have been known, and including conversations and trying to help perhaps him doing things with their government there. So there are some things that they may all of a sudden recognize. Yeah, that's my handwriting.
All right. What do you? The American public's tired of this story. If they like President Trump, if they don't like President Trump, they want to put a noose around Mr. Trump's neck and tie him some way into Epstein. But what do you want? What are you trying to demystify about Bill Clinton himself? He says he wasn't on that stupid island. He says he wasn't involved with any kind of illegality. What do you want to try to demonstrate with the former president?
Well, it seemingly other people did understand what were going on behind closed doors. They seemingly did understand that perhaps people tried to get Jeffrey Epstein a job or to be a part of the government, not to pay taxes when they were there, to gain favor with them. Who paid the money? Who was providing cover for these things? These are all things that would tend to jar one's memory if confronted with ideas, perhaps facts the case. So I think it's always worthy to get it straight from them rather than just releasing data and information that by and large has not been released yet.
Do you think there'll be some new headlines here?
I think that there will be some questions.
Okay.
Certainly.
Okay. So President Clinton, do you believe, and you don't have to be specific, that wouldn't be, because you guys are doing your research, you're going to have the hearing and all that. Do you believe he's in legal jeopardy?
Well, there's always something that's said, and that is the cover-up is worse than the crime. So, and of course, as you suggested, at least Mrs. Clinton is probably going to say, I don't remember, I don't know, I forgot. Very similar to what we have heard over the last few days from a number of witnesses. And of course, we know who that is. Jack Smith did that when he was deeply involved, and yet he accuses others of not having memory. So, my point might be to the Clintons, it didn't have to come this way, and it's ended up this way.
Okay, but with Bill and Hillary, it's two different things, or you tell me if I'm wrong. Bill Clinton was an active participant in social things with Jeffrey Epstein. Everybody knows that. Pictures are out there. He's in some kind of pool, whatever. With Hillary Clinton, from my investigation, it has to do with her charitable foundation. Is that correct?
Well, there's a good bit, and that goes back to the, well, if you don't remember, let me see if I can help your memory out, documents.
Okay, so she was involved with Epstein, former Secretary of State, in a way that might be considered shady when you're trying to raise money for your charitable foundation. That's what our investigation shows. I mean, we don't have what you have, but that's the direction that I believe is in play. Am I right or wrong on that?
I would say that would certainly be the major part of this paperwork that does exist.
Because you know how much I want to be right, Congressman. I mean, Anyway, look, we appreciate you telling the American people exactly what's going on, because they can't get that in the corporate media. They can't get it. The information that you just gave me, and you answered every question. You didn't dodge, you didn't do this, right? They can't get it because the corporate media will not cover it unless it's Trump. Last word.
Well, I would say to you that, once again, the things which are presented before the committee at the end of the month will be probably pretty good theater. And it's my hope that there's a lot of reality, that people need to answer questions or will be reminded.
All right. I hope you come back, Congressman. We really appreciate your time today.
I'd like to well enough to get invited back. And Bill, thank you. I hope you recover.
Thanks very much, sir. On Cuomo, but Cuomo wasn't there. So there was a substitute guy, Jesse, and he's good. But I was way back in the show, which usually I'm not. And I don't care one way or the other. I'm a mercenary at News Nation. I mean, they hire me and I do the best I can for them. So I watched News Nation leading up to my appearance. 7 o'clock, Guthrie, about a half hour. 8 o'clock, Guthrie, 35 minutes. 9 o'clock, Guthrie. Every cable station. Guthrie. Because people are interested in it. As we said yesterday, mystery, Savannah Guthrie is famous. Mom. All right. I feel so sorry for the correspondents out there because they got to fill all of this airtime and they don't know anything. All right, so they're standing in front of the house and the anchor's going, well, what do you make of this? And whenever you hear an anchor person say, what do you make of it? Whenever you hear that, you know the person is too lazy to formulate a question. Okay, never hear me say that. I got questions. What do you make of that? Come on. An 8-year-old could do that. Anyway, you get the correspondents out there, and what about we found a glove, and then how does the correspondent doesn't know? Well, maybe it was somebody from Mexico, like maybe it was Godzilla. You know, it's like crazy. And the correspondents have got to vamp. This is their job. They got to fill the time. And I'm sitting there going, because I know this. This is my world for decades. Live shots, explaining. But when I did it, I had facts. I could tell you about the story. There's no facts. Okay, well, there's a videotape. How many times have you seen that videotape? 35,000 times? And they loop it. We didn't get it the first 34,000 times. Loop and loop and loop. So I feel their pain. I was there. I never did that, though. I never did that. The closest it came was, and I told you this yesterday, was when JFK Jr.'s plane went down in the Long Island Sound. And it was like, what do we say now? Is there a sea monster? It was like, what do we do? And nobody knew. Well, it could have been maybe a submarine. And it's the same thing out in Arizona. I expect this thing to wrap up, you know, but boy, that's a hard job. So be sympathetic to the correspondents, but the anchors realize that they don't know anything. They can't even get a question out. All right. Thank you very much for watching and listening to the No Spin News. I'm Bill O'Reilly. We hope you have a very good President's Day weekend. I'm going to take a lot of naps, and I will see you again on Monday.